back to the Tennessee Football Podcast. This is Clint Guffey.
Nathan McLaughlin. What's up?
Sorry, guys, that we've been MIA. I've started a new job. Nathan has been very busy with coaching and student teaching.
Yeah.
And doing that type of thing. So we apologize. But as you know, this is kind of the dead time of the year for football, other than like some practices and players getting traded around and demanding more money, which is a great segue into our first few topics and talking about why players are overpaid, some players are underpaid, and why teams want to pay for players that they know don't have a good performance. They have 3 games, they do well, all of a sudden they get an $85 million contract.
And I feel like sometimes it's because of not necessarily the fact that they're really good. Sometimes they really pay these players because they think that they're big names, and they'll bring some like money into the franchise. Because we do have to remember, like when it comes down to like NFL and even NBA, things like that, it comes down to being a business, and sometimes a big name will put butts in seats, like bringing in Johnny Manziel or something like that. Even though he can't really play that well.
Well, like that's fine, but like Brock Osweiler, Kirk Cousins.
The thing about that is quarterbacks are getting overpaid like outrageously right now, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's like there's this shortage of quarterbacks and everybody's trying to find their franchise guy, and they're trying to find a franchise guy and somebody that got picked in the 3rd or 4th round that just kind of groomed behind somebody else for years. Everybody's kind of desperate for that. And yeah, like Kirk Cousins is a decent quarterback, but he can't win the big game. Like he can't win the medium-sized game, much less the big game. He can't win any games against any winning opponents. Like it's always against the guys that are 3-13, 4-12, 5-11 type deal.
Yeah, I think I saw something, and this might be an Aaron Rodgers stat. I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to butcher it. I'm just going to look it up.
Might as well. And it's like Brock Osweiler, he sat behind Peyton Manning there for a few years. When he came in at Denver and was playing in 2015 when Peyton Manning was hurt, he was doing all right, but he also had a pretty good offensive line, some good receivers, and a good run game to kind of help him out. When you kind of thrust him into a position where he doesn't have all of that together, plus a good defense, starts to show the cracks a little bit. Quarterbacks are just far overvalued. They're getting picked higher than they're supposed to be picked. They're getting paid higher than they're supposed to be getting paid. You'll have guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, who I still think will be a good quarterback. You're having guys like him who played a few games, getting paid a huge contract.
Yeah.
Because people are so afraid to lose them. The problem is these albatross contracts end up weighing down the entire team where they can't pick up anybody else. So if you don't draft really well and have guys on rookie contracts, you're kind of screwed, because you're not going to be able to get anybody in free agency. You're not going to be able to trade for any big guys that are going to want a payday. But then on the other hand, you got these guys like Le'Veon Bell who sat around and now they're paid as every fan wanted them to be. And you watch, Le'Veon Bell will probably suck.
Yeah, so this tweet, this is the one I was referring to, is from Mark Schlereth.
Mark Schlereth.
And this tweet was on December 11th, 2018. So this is Kirk Cousins' stats. In primetime games, he's 5-13. Record versus winning teams with a winning record, he's 4-24. Record versus winning teams this year at this point in the season, and as December 11th of the 2018 season, he was 0-5. Career road record 12-23-2, and record on Monday Night Football 0-7.
Yep, that sounds about right. Just not a good record at all. I mean, he doesn't perform well against the big time football teams, like a deer in headlights. He can put up numbers and stuff against easier teams, and everybody will start saying, "Oh, well, Kirk Cousins is kind of the real deal," and then he'll start going up against a real football team, and he'll struggle.
I never watched a game where he was good.
I mean, he's been good in games, but he hasn't ever been really good against big time opponents.
I think I saw a stat. I'm gonna have to look this one up because I don't want to
But it also, like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that do have a big game here, every now and then. They'll throw for 400 something yards because it's not a rarity anymore. Because the NFL is just geared toward offense and trying to make people watch, and having all these 54 to 51 games, which it just irritates the crap out of me, because I don't. I'm not saying I don't enjoy that game like every once in a while, but I don't like seeing that game every day with some kind of basketball score. Like, I want to see a methodical, like everybody, like we've probably talked about it before. The Super Bowl, this past Super Bowl, everybody said it's the worst Super Bowl ever. No, that's one of the greatest Super Bowls ever, because it was a methodical coaching match. It wasn't all about just getting out there and putting up points like it was the previous year. It was about coaching, and it came down to that.
So I'm looking up this stat. I almost have it. So this is referring to Aaron Rodgers, who I think is overpaid. Talent-wise, he's a very talented quarterback, very generational. However, this was late fall last year when this article came out from Newsweek. He is 0-37 when entering the fourth quarter, trailing by more than a point against teams with a winning record. 0-37. How can you argue that he's the greatest of all time? And that's a different argument. We're not getting into that. But it's the point of this: what players think they deserve, what players are actually worth, and why are you paying quarterbacks this insane amount of money?
Yeah.
Not to mention running backs too. Now, like, you have also had players that people think that deserve more money, and then the players say they don't deserve that amount of money, i.e., Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper. But I don't understand why bog your team down like you were talking about, and not be able to trade around and get good, fundamentally sound football players.
Yep, sets you up for life. Doesn't set your team up for real success. And football is the ultimate team sport. Thing about Aaron Rodgers is, when he's done, he'll probably have most of the statistical records. He is on pace to just, he dominates touchdown interception ratio.
I'm not discrediting his talent or what the stat numbers are.
But he can't be, what I was about to say is, he can't be considered one of the greatest of all time. He has one Super Bowl ring. It can't really be far up there. Breezes is kind of far up there, but he only has one Super Bowl ring too. So, yeah, if you're looking at it by statistical achievements, he could be up, he can be up there in the conversation. But if you're looking at it by, trying to accomplish things on the field, such as winning games, you have to knock him down a peg, because, he won one Super Bowl, and there's a lot more than a lot of people end up winning. But, in the end, that's one Super Bowl. You got a quarterback that's, won six, that's, and Ben DeMore, that's, sitting right there in Foxborough, just
and is older
relaxing, and it's older than everybody else. Can't even be considered near the greatest. Brady has cemented his legacy as the greatest so far, and he'll probably never be touched, because it's going to be hard to win as many Super Bowls as he has. And Montana's right behind him, because Montana won 4 and made it look easy the entire time.
Joe Montana.
Yeah, Joe Montana. And then behind him, I would probably put Peyton Manning as third, just because he's been to 3 Super Bowls, won 2 of them. So he's got 2 rings, which isn't as much as Terry Bradshaw. But if you ever watch, Terry Bradshaw had a strong arm, but he was never just a friggin' good quarterback. He had a strong arm, but there was like a point in the mid '70s that the Steelers were going to bench him and start this guy behind him, because he was not very good. He's kind of overrated in the way of everybody thinking he's a great quarterback. He won a lot of Super Bowls, but that was that steel curtain defense. That was Franco Harris on offense, and Rocky Bleier, at running back, and John Stallworth, Lynn Swann catching the ball. That wasn't Terry Bradshaw making all that play.
You ever met John Stallworth?
I have never met John Stallworth.
Very cool person. He came in to Gander Mountain one day when I was working, and of course everybody's like, "Will you get his autograph for me?" And I'm like, "I will." I didn't ask for his autograph because I didn't want to be that guy. Because I was like, "Hey man, I hate to ask you, but My supervisor. That's fine. He was a cool
Yeah.
dude. He was buying a safe, a big gun safe.
Yeah, John Stallworth is an awesome person, though. He's done a lot for the community in Huntsville,
Mm-hmm.
because he obviously graduated from Alabama A&M, played there, and he's turned around and done a lot, like John Stallworth Memorial Golf Tournament and all that stuff. But anyway, like that's why you couldn't. That wasn't even a topic, but that's why you can't really put. I mean, you can't seriously put Rodgers up there as one of the greatest of all time, based on the fact that he's won one Super Bowl and he hadn't even been to another one.
I don't understand why Shannon Sharp says that. As much as we love Shannon and as big a fan.
And I love me some Shannon Thought.
I don't understand it.
I mean, he's in the same league Super Bowl wise with Trent Dilfer. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, Trent Dilfer's got a Super Bowl ring. If you're Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he hasn't even gotten to another Super Bowl. It would be different if you'd gotten to one or two more and just had a ring. But God, you ain't even been to another one, man. NFC. Like Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson's as far as football achievements is better than you at this point. He's been to two. He won one.
Should have won two.
And they should have won two. They really just messed that one up.
The game was thrown for the Patriots, Nathan. Don't you know that?
Yeah, of course.
So this leads to the next. Is kind of a segue for our next one. In talking about Todd Gurley's health.
Yeah, I told you that I had
conflicting reports on this.
I hadn't read up a whole lot on it. What I read was they knew he was going to have some arthritic problems with his knee, and what they're doing is they're trying to lessen the workload on him this off season and keep his weight down in order to keep him kind of healthy. And
he's not going to be an every down back.
Yeah, they're thinking that with this approach, when weeks 13 through 17 come around, he'll be available. When the playoffs come around, he'll be available instead of being on the shelf. Because I'll tell you right now, with his knee the way it is, they can't run him into the ground like they have been. I mean, they can't.
Whenever they drafted him, they said that they had been monitoring his knee since Georgia. And then I didn't, until the other day, I didn't know that he had played since the week one with a knee injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know about that either.
But he's just, I think, like you said, being over-abused, and you probably say the same thing for Ezekiel Elliott too. But the biggest thing is that the arguments in the articles that I read were saying that they might have paid too much for him too quickly. And
that's possible.
And as you know, running backs have a short shelf life.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that I think they said that they could have let a fifth-year option, like opted out for his fifth-year option and paid him, it was like $9 million, I think, for this final year of his contract. And now they extended it to like 2022, I think. But I mean, good on him for getting paid. These players deserve to get paid.
They absolutely deserve to get paid. They don't deserve to be an absolute nuisance to their team. And I mean, they can, by all means, sit out the games or whatever, but don't sit there and run your mouth about every other teammate. Just keep your mouth shut, sit out the games if need be, and then wait for another team to get paid. Don't sit there and run your mouth about everybody and talk bad about everybody and run. And all you're doing is making yourself look like a locker room cancer.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing. And that's the entire saga with Le'Veon Bell. Listen, it's a business. Pittsburgh was not going to overpay for him, overpay for Antonio Brown, and then have Ben Roethlisberger on the same roster.
No, because they really not abused, but one could argue that, he was the work back for a while, so why would you want to pay that much for him when you got a cancer survivor who is doing just as good?
And is on a rookie contract as well, not somebody that and the thing is they made him a good offer. I don't remember how much it was, but they made him an offer for quite a bit of money per year.
Yeah.
And he turned it down because he wanted something ridiculous.
Yeah, and not to mention, the money that he was losing per game ended up being more money than what he was asking for.
Yeah, the thing about it is, I think it was, I forget who said it, but I think what they said was he actually turned down a deal from the Steelers to be the highest paid running back in the league because he wanted more than that.
Why?
Because he's greedy. I mean, that's just greed to me. Like, I understand getting paid, but you got to realize you're in the business of football where there's 53 players on a roster. Some of them ain't getting paid 10% of what you're getting paid.
No.
At some point, you got to be like, holy crap, maybe we need to win some Super Bowls here, and maybe it's not all about me making $15 and $20 million a year at a position where I can be replaced really pretty, I mean, honestly, easily. You know, they want to pay me quarterback money. I want to be paid quarterback money, and I'm out for me and mine, and I understand being out for you and yours and taking care of your family and all that, but at some point it becomes you're playing a team sport. You're playing a sport where there's 52 other guys on the roster. At some point, is there not a light that goes off in your head that says, well, maybe I can be like Tom Brady, turn down a little bit of money and, kind of help my team out. And I understand Tom's got Giselle, too, who makes a lot of friggin' money,
But
too.
he's also got a lot of endorsements. But it doesn't matter. It's a team sport.
And you know what? You could get a lot of endorsements, too, if you quit running your mouth and quit being a bitter, sad sap that nobody wants to be around.
Yeah.
When you're like that and you're like a locker room cancer, then nobody turns around and wants to endorse you because they don't want their kids growing up like you. Why don't you become a better person? And when you become a better person, then you can jump into the endorsements. The endorsements are paying for you, and then you ain't got to worry about being paid $20 million a year to be a running back. Somewhere that somebody that's getting paid $850,000 a year can replace you and be almost as good. Yeah. James Conner may not be as good as Le'Veon Bell is, but he's good.
Well,
he does exactly what Le'Veon Bell does.
He is not doing anything else than Le'Veon Bell is not doing.
Oh, well, Le'Veon Bell's such a weapon. Le'Veon Bell, you can split him out wide and all this. Who cares if you can split him out wide? Who cares? And here's the thing about Le'Veon Bell, too. Have you ever thought about his availability? Hey, have you ever thought about his availability? How about the brother getting arrested for weed? How about the brother getting hurt, gets knee injuries, which I understand. You know, you get hurt with a knee injury, you can't really do anything. But the weed, and he gets suspended for 8 games because of weed. He's not available because of the weed. Oh my God. And I'm not saying anything about, like Stephen A. Smith says, it's not about being against weed. It's the fact that it's illegal in the NFL and you're going to get suspended for it. So why do you do it?
But if you haven't seen that video on YouTube, look it up.
Stay off the weed.
Stephen A. is not fond of the marijuana.
Not at all. But, I mean, you got to be available to get paid. And what it comes down to is Todd Gurley cannot be running to the ground because his knee's not going to take it. And he could be like I was watching this thing about this linebacker out of Alabama that got picked. He got picked like first overall in 1990, or I think it was 1990, named Keith McCants. And Keith McCants, like, he came out with like a leg injury or something like that. And they were like, oh, yeah, it's going to be fine. And on the inside, everybody was like, he's not going to last 5 seasons in the NFL. And it was like 3 seasons and he got cut. And now he ended up being broke at some point. He was on that 30 for 30 called Broke, talking about how he just spent money on all this and that and he didn't have any money left. Your availability and it sucks when you get those knee injuries and stuff. And, like kudos to a guy like Jalen Smith who got his knee absolutely shredded, but he came back. Like everybody said, he's never going to play. The Cowboys picked him. And that's fantastic, but he's never going to play. And he may not be the same player he was going to be, but he's still on the field and he's still playing, pretty well. So, kudos to a guy like that. But, when it comes down to it, it's going to be hard for them to they can't just sit and pound on Todd Gurley. They're going to have 1 or 2 more running backs to really shoulder that load.
I think they drafted a guy that they feel pretty confident in splitting the load with.
Yep, absolutely.
So
I think it was Henderson out of Memphis that they picked. Might have been him. Henderson ran for like 2,000 yards last year. But yeah, that's how it's going to have to be for that.
So speaking of knees, this is a good segue into his knee is fine, but he's going to be missing the passing academy
I saw that the
because of
other day,
because of tweaked hamstring.
and all I could do was roll my eyes. I was like, Jesus Christ, it's happening again.
And like it or not, as an Alabama fan, you have to admit that Tua is injury prone.
Tua is injury prone. It sucks because he's the greatest quarterback that's ever played at Alabama in one season. The problem is he can't stay freaking healthy. He can stay off the weed, but he can't stay healthy.
So I wonder what makes players where they're like that, where they're just injury prone. I wonder if it's not taking what.
God, it's just like it's almost like just a natural thing. Like those people that you might have played high school football with or something like that, and it was like, oh yeah, we got him back this year, and then he'd shred his knee again, or oh yeah, we got him back this year, and he'd hurt his back, or oh yeah, we got him back this year, and he'd tear his bicep off the bone working out. It's like, dude, what's wrong with you? It's like some people just have freak luck like that, where they get injured, they get hit by a friggin' truck when they walk outside. They get, they step on a rock the wrong way and they tweak their knee. It's about how Tua is. It's like Tua is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, but he goes outside, he'll step on a rock and he'll be injured for 5 weeks because of it. And this is the third. Now, a tweaked hamstring is not a major injury, but this is the third injury that he's had. He had the wrist injury going into spring. Was it this year?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, wrist injury going in. No, hang on. It may have been last year. It wasn't this spring, this A-Day game. I think it was the last one. Yeah, it was the last one. He had injured his wrist or something, and he couldn't play, and that's when Jalen got to start for one team and Matt got to start for the other.
Yeah.
He had an injured wrist, got over that, gets into the first game of the year. I think he tweaked his knee on that little spin move deal that he got hit with. Tweaks his knee. His knee's, injured all year long. And now we get into this whole Manning Passing Academy.
And his ankle, too. Don't forget about his
ankle. And then
which is not his fault. A dude stepped on it.
Yeah. And then we get into this whole Manning Passing Academy thing where he's got a tweaked hamstring. And it's like, dude, Jesus Christ. He just stays hurt in some way.
I know that you can overstretch. Because one year at kicking camp, is before Auburn won the championship with Cam Newton. So they only had like their little 50 by 50 indoor facility, and it was like storming outside, so we couldn't go to the intramural fields and kick. So we just stayed inside and stretched for like 2 hours, and then went and kicked and did kickoffs for like an hour. You can overstretch because that's when I pulled my groin.
Yeah.
So I always wonder if, and I'm not critiquing the coaching staff and the medical staff at Bama, but I wonder if there's something in their workout regime that is causing him you can't do anything about like ankles or knees or like because those game time injuries, but you wonder if like he maybe is doing too much or if he's
you have to wonder that. You have to wonder that about everybody at Alabama
because
the problem at Alabama is there's so many 5-star guys that you're going to get replaced by. If these guys get to the NFL like Jonah Williams and he's already missing the first season, the first entire year.
Reggie Ragland had the same thing.
They get hurt as soon as they get in the NFL, and they have to have 18 surgeries to repair everything because they play so hurt at Alabama because they know that their job's going to get taken by the next 5-star that comes up. That's the big downside to this whole awesome recruiting stuff right here is we get ready for these guys to play well in the NFL, and they can't even get on the field because they're so hurt. They're injured. Every part of their body is hurt. Every part of their body's got to have surgery on it because they just play through it at Alabama. And now a lot of that is just getting injured, like football. I mean, because it's tough football. But then there's like some of these injuries where it's like, dude, is the weightlifting staff like, and no disrespect to Scott Cochran or anything, he's awesome, but like it's like at some point, are these guys getting hurt in the weight room? Sometimes like. A hamstring injury, it's not like Tua was just running sprints out there or something and all of a sudden his hamstring is hurt, which could have happened, but it's like, what's going on? And I know that like Alabama staff, they do like certain things. Like I've heard that they don't even, quarterbacks work out differently because they don't try to put pressure on their like AC joints.
Well, they should. They should cater to
or
the
anything
position.
like that. They try to, make sure that they're lifting and make sure that they're, gaining weight or whatever and getting bigger, but like they're not putting pressure on their like shoulder joints where they don't, tear something like a rotator cuff or an AC joint or something like that or a labrum, because they know that that's the quarterback's got to have that, so they tailor to that type of deal. I think Jay Barker was talking about the other day because his son walked on at Alabama, Braxton, and he said that they work out the quarterbacks just a completely different way. So that's one side of the thing, but on the other side, it's like, God, all these guys just keep getting hurt, so, and I understand, it's football and guys in football are going to play through injuries no matter what because they don't want to get their job taken away. I know that happens, but goodness gracious, they get to the NFL and they're dead. They get to the NFL and they can't walk anymore. They get to the NFL and they have to retire because they just can't. I mean, they're just every part of their body needs surgery.
I think the reason Derrick Henry's doing so well is just because he's not from this planet.
Yeah, exactly. Freak show.
And he only had 1 year where he coded the workload. So
exactly.
But as far as the other, like the 3-year starters, it shows. I mean, I hate it for the guys because how good they are, but this isn't the first time that there's been a conversation about Alabama players being overworked.
Not the first time.
And it's usually brought up every year.
It's every year because every year there's an Alabama player that you're excited about that gets drafted and he's out for the entire season because he's hurt.
Ryan Kelly's been one that's been hurt constantly.
Just constantly. And, he had his share of getting hurt at Alabama. He got hurt and Bradley Bozeman would have to come in for him a lot of times at center or J.C. Hassenauer would have to. And now it's no different. Ryan Kelly's just hurt all the time. He's one of the best centers in the NFL when he's healthy, but when is he healthy? There's just a certain breed of people that are just so injury prone, man. It sucks.
And we've also had this conversation on here before about the Hawaiian quarterbacks kind of being injury prone. I don't necessarily think, maybe it's just Tua and Marcus Mariota.
Well, Mariota didn't get injury prone to the NFL when he started getting really hit. But the thing is like Marcus Mariota would never get hurt at Oregon, and he ran the ball a lot more than he does now. Like he doesn't even run the ball now, even though he runs a 4.55 or something like that in the 40. He will not run the ball, but like he gets hurt every time he drops back. But yeah, I'm not too sure about that. And Mackenzie Milton's injury was just like a freak show injury. I mean, there was really nothing he could do about that.
You can't do anything about that. I don't think Tayamu's ever been hurt.
No, Ta'amu never got hurt
because he's a giant.
He went in because Shea Patterson got hurt, and he went in. He was better in Ole Miss's offense than Shea Patterson was, and I think Shea Patterson's frankly really overrated. Trash.
I wish we had like a little soundboard.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So what do you think about college football fight songs? Why did you want to talk about this?
Oh, why I wanted to talk about this real quick was because I was just thinking about it the other day, and I was going like on YouTube and like listening to different college fight songs, and I was going to talk about some of my favorites. Like obviously Alabama is one of my favorites because it's Alabama, but not just because it's Alabama, because it's a really good fight song. But I was going to talk about some other ones that I really enjoy.
You got a football nerd when he's talking about college football fight songs.
A lot of teams I hate. I love their fight songs. I hate Oklahoma, but Boomer Sooner is a great fight song. I hate Auburn, but they have a really good fight song. I don't like Florida State, but the War Chant is amazing.
Yeah, when we played North Jackson in high school, and when they scored, like every time they touched the ball, it was
you
just
used to hear it all the time.
Because they had the same chant as the Chiefs.
And now I'll hear it at my school that I coach at. But
they do it there?
Yeah. The fight song is the Florida State War Chant.
That's awesome.
I hate USC, but they have a great fight song too. They have a great like entire sequence. Like they have this thing that they start out with, like fanfare, and then they go into like this thing called Victory, and it sounds awesome. The actual fight song is still good, but it's not as good as like those first few parts. But what was it? Florida has a really good fight song, I think, too. LSU has a really good one. There's just a lot of teams that I was thinking about. Texas has got another really good one. Like, there's just a bunch of teams like fight songs are one of the most important parts, like college and high school football, in my opinion. Like the fight song just gets you amped up, gets your blood flowing, and that's why like when we played, we had one of the worst fight songs on earth that I hated.
I don't even really ever remember hearing
it. Was terrible. I mean,
probably why.
You just have to tune it out because it just does not get you excited at all. Like
it's like our pregame.
Oh yeah, like our pregame speeches.
Pregame speeches and pregame music.
I mean, like listening to Katy Perry, that's a big difference between the school I'm at now because they don't play Katy Perry
football school.
Yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to talk about that real quick because I like a lot of, especially like a lot of teams I hate, but God, they have such good fight songs. Like I'd say like in Tennessee, Rocky Top is just a fantastic fight song. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how mad anybody gets. Like Rocky Top's a great fight song. Um, like I said, those are just some fight songs that I really enjoyed that I just wanted to talk about briefly. Like, and especially I have Jalen is at Oklahoma, so I can have instead of hating Oklahoma, I can kind of root for him this year because he's there. So I can really dig Boomer Sooner because Boomer Sooners are just a really good freaking fight song. Like that's just how it goes. But Texas A&M has a good one too, a really good one. But yeah, like I didn't know how many of them that you had heard or really paid attention to, but you just got to go on YouTube and listen to some of these I'm talking about if you haven't really heard them. Notre Dame's got a legendary one. Michigan, I used to think, because everybody was talking about how great Michigan's was, and I was like, Michigan's is not good. And then I realized that you had to go listen to the entire thing because it's like 8 minutes long, but they don't play it in full at the games.
Obviously.
But it's like the full thing is like 8 minutes long, and it actually sounds really good when you listen to the whole version. But then, like Ohio State's, everybody talks about how great Ohio State's is, and I don't think they have a very good fight song. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that real quick because there's a lot of just really interesting fight songs. Another really underrated small school that's got a great fight song is Marshall. Marshall has an awesome fight song too. But I don't know how many of them you've heard or how many of them you've ever paid attention to, but you got to go on YouTube and just listen to some of them and how great they really are. It just gets you like really amped up for football season too.
So this is our last topic. We wanted to kind of keep this one brief. Just kind of touch base on a few topics and things that come across our mind. But as you know, I always have a one topic at the end of the podcast that's very meaningful. So, how is coaching, and what is it like? What does it mean to you? So, how is it going now? As you're in it now, and why have you always wanted to do it, and what does it mean to you?
Coaching is awesome. The kids have kind of, I'm not just kind of the, guy that's standing around that doesn't know anybody anymore. I'm in tune with all the coaches, and we're all, pretty, good buddies or whatever, especially when we're there. And, a lot of the kids have warmed up to me and everything. They know who I am. They know why I'm around, and it's fantastic. It's great to see the growth of these players just over a short period of time. You see these growth in these players, and they're hitting the weight rooms. Hitting the weight room hard. They're trying to get better for for this next season coming up, and you start seeing the leaders in the group, and it just really fires you up because you're like, those are really great leaders. It it was always something I wanted to do because I'm not going to say it's always something I wanted to do. It's something I wanted to do ever since my senior year of high school. That's when I really decided I wanted to be a teacher and coach. And it's really the coaching thing. Honestly, comes from a kind of selfish point of view. The coaching thing comes from the fact that I only played football for 2 years. I only played my junior and senior year, and technically only my junior year because I was hurt my entire senior year. But the pain of losing 17 games in 2 years and winning 3 of them absolutely sucked. And you know this as well as I do because you were there for a part of it just like I was.
Yeah,
and
we
having
can.
such a terrible senior season, especially because we went 1-9. I wasn't able to play. I'm sitting there staring at a position that I'm supposed to be playing that somebody has filled, and they're terrible. And it's hard for me to be a leader because I'm so bitter that I'm hurt, And I know how it was because I wasn't a good leader and I wasn't there for practice half the time because I was so bitter for being hurt and so bitter at myself, that I was injured the entire year, even though I couldn't do anything about it. But I was so bitter. And then I was bitter at the fact that we were losing, and I was bitter at the fact that people didn't care that we were losing. A lot of people on the team just didn't care. And then I was bitter at the coaches for not caring that we were losing and not wanting to do anything
Well,
about it.
that also goes back to February of that year too.
So it kind of goes into some just, it kind of came from just this place of absolute bitterness, of absolute, I don't want any kid to feel like I did those 2 years where we couldn't win. We almost couldn't buy a friggin' win. I don't want kids to feel that way. I want to go somewhere and start a, or not start a football program, but I want to go somewhere and revamp a football program to the point where that community can come and be proud of them. When their senior night comes around, everybody's filled the stands. It's not 5 people in the stands because they know how bad we suck, and it's not. And I don't want kids to have to go through that, because losing. It's like Coach says, our head coach, where I'm at. The pain of losing in football hurts worse than just about anything. Because losing in football sucks more than it does just about any other sport. And I'm not calling out any other sports. I love sports, but there's a lot of sports that play a lot more games than football does.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball plays double the games football does, or triple the games football does sometimes.
Especially
Basketball plays triple the games football does. In football, especially at high school, if you don't make it to the playoffs, you got 10 games. 12 if you count a spring and fall jamboree, which don't really count. If you make in Alabama, if you make it to the playoffs, unless you're in 7A, which is 4 games, you make it to the state championship game, you got 15 games. You lose one of those, it hurts a lot more than it does losing, being a non-basketball school, losing to Columbia High School or something in basketball. You're like, oh, I expected that. Football hurts to lose because you're going out there, you're bashing each other's brains in for 2.5 hours. You're trying to eke out a win, and it hurts even more when you know you can beat this team and you lose by a point. You know you can beat this team and you lose by 28. You know you can beat this team and you lose by 15. You lose by 15 points or so because you fumbled the ball away 3 times at the 20-yard line when you were driving down the field. The pain of losing in football hurts, and hurt me especially because I was so mad, and I was more mad at the fact that there was a lot of teammates, especially my senior year, when I was trying to get those guys fired up or whatever. There's guys that just laughed at me for trying to be a leader. I don't want people laughing at other people for trying to be leaders. I've seen it a few times at the school I'm at now. Now, would Coach put up with that if he knew that was going on? No. But it happens, when they're not around. The thing is when people are trying to be leaders, man, they're not trying to be leaders to just say I'm a leader. They're trying to be leaders because they want everybody to be better. They want the team to be better. And when the team doesn't want themselves to be better, that's sad. And I, as a coach, the biggest thing that I wanted to do as a coach was that. It came from this bitterness of having lost so many games. I don't want kids to have to go through that. I want kids to win just about every game. And I'm so competitive already. I'm competitive at anything that I do. I want to be better. I want to be the best, And some people would say that's an unhealthy attitude to have, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it as if you're highly competitive, especially in a sport like that, you just want to win. I mean, and now doing anything to win, like cheating, going over the top cheating like Rush Probst does, that's one thing. But you just want the best for your team. You want your team to win games, and you want them to be able to look back 15 years later after they went to college and they've graduated and they've got a job, or if they've gone into coaching as well. And you want them to be able to talk to their team and say, you know what, Coach, this is what he instilled in us. This is the values that he instilled in us, and that's why we won a state championship. That's why we turned this program around. We were 0-10 for 3 straight years, couldn't buy a win, and we turned around, and in 3 years we were in the playoffs. You know, that's the kind of passion that I have about coaching. The kind of passion I have about teaching too. I want students to be better versions of themselves when they leave the classroom. You know, it's not all about coaching. I didn't get into teaching just to coach football, and just teaching is just the job that I have to do. I got into teaching because I want to make a difference in these kids' lives. Coaching, especially in football, is a sport where you can make a huge difference in a lot of kids' lives. That's what I want to do. And the bitterness of losing so many games and seeing so many coaches and players give up and not care
Give up before the season.
before the season makes me want to go in as a coach and say, whether we go 1-9 or whether we go 9-1 in the regular season, I'm going to care about every freaking game that we play, and I'm going to want to win every freaking game that we play. I don't care if it's North Jackson, who, you know, at that point in time couldn't lose, or if it's Crossville, who at that time couldn't win. I want to win against every team we play against. I don't care how big they are. I don't care how talented they are. I don't care about their school history in football. We're going to go out there to win these games every time. We're not going out there to lose. We're not going out there to say, let's just go on to next week. We're not going to watch film on these guys. We'll just go. We're going to go on. We're going to go on to Fairview. I'm not doing that. I don't care if they're 10-0 and they're stomping everybody by 70 points a game. We're going to prepare for them because we're preparing to win. We ain't preparing to go out there and get our brains kicked in. You know, drive an hour and a half up to Stevenson to get our brains kicked in. We're not going to prepare to drive, 20 minutes over to Gunnersville to get our brains kicked in. We're preparing to win the freaking game. And if we lose, we lose. But we're going to prepare like winners. That's where coaching for me came from.
There we go. So we're going to end on that note because I don't think you can get much better than that. And all I can say is hopefully your kids will, your students and your players, whenever you get out of student teaching and get to a real school next year, hopefully they'll buy into that. That's how Saban's done what he's done.
Hopefully so. That's all you can do is hope. You can put the plan out there, and you can hope that they buy into it, and that's what you want. Especially for your kids, because you feel like if they buy into it, you'll get them turned around. That's what I really want to do.
They don't cuss on this podcast very much, but hell yeah, brother.
Well, sounds like
it's a good ending.
Good way to end it.
So this is Clint Guthrie signing off.
Nathan McLaughlin signing off. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, people.